Thank you. We'll go ahead and call the Senate Revenue Committee to order. Today on our agenda is one bill. It is Senate File 54, the homeowner tax exemption. It was a joint committee bill that we worked on through the interim extensively. It was in the suite of property tax bills that we worked on, and this one made its way to the Senate side. A lot of them went over to the House side. This is our only Senate property tax bill on revenue. Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting to do the roll. My vice chairman here says we gotta do the roll. Let's do the roll, please.
Senator French,
Here.
Senator Ide,
Here.
Senator McCune,
Here.
Senator Pappas,
Here.
Chairman Beitman.
Here. All right, we're all here. So anyway, that's where we're at. I'll walk through the bill real quick. I'm sure most of you are very familiar with the bill. I'll just hit on the highlights of it, and then we'll take public testimony. And we'll work the bill and get you on your way. So this is an act related to taxation. We establish a homeowner property tax exemption for primary residents, and we provide a penalty for false claims. The meat of the bill is really on page 2 here. Property tax exemption shall apply for residential real property used as a primary residence, and the amount shall be 25.6% of the fair market value of the residential real property, not to exceed a total exemption of $200,000. Shall only apply to paragraph B, not more than one exemption under this paragraph shall apply to the same property in any year, and no owner shall claim more than one exemption under this paragraph in any year, including property that houses more than one family. As you can see, it's been whittled down quite a bit. If you recall the interim, we had a lot of 7-7 splits, and it was really tough to get consensus on anything with the House. So that's why you see kind of a lot of these bills are pretty pared down, but that's the meat of the bill. I'll open it up to public comment, and come on up if you wish to testify. Please introduce yourself to the committee and address the chair. You guys all know the rules. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ken Giel, Administrator of the Property Tax Division with the Department of Revenue. Looking at the bill, the very first thing I have to ask myself, can this be administered in our current CAMA system? And I believe it could. It's pretty straightforward. It's 25.6% exemption up to 200,000. So I think we can administer it. I would like to bring your attention to just a few items to maybe consider. The application is due by the 4th Monday in May. That matches language much like the veterans exemption of when that veteran must file that claim for that exemption. Since the veterans exemption is backfilled by the state. So in other words, when that veteran pays their tax bill, they don't pay that portion of the tax of the exemption, but then the state refills that at a later date. This one does not do that. So from the 4th Monday in May, June 1st, the assessors must turn in their abstract to the State Board of Equalization. So we're talking a matter of a few days to get all of these exemptions into the CAMA system and properly calculated to apply this exemption to the certified value for the State Board of Equalization. Pretty short time span there. So just something to consider there. I will say the Director of Revenue is very much into technology. And if something like this were to pass with an application showing that they are the owners and occupying that residence, the State Department of Revenue would look to prop up a website for the application and make that the only place to apply. And at that point, we would have all the information and we could transfer that data to all 23 county assessors all at one time. So it is something that we have investigated. We haven't designed it, of course, but it is something that we definitely did want to look into. The other piece that I might ask you to maybe consider on page 4 on the big Romanet 3 at the bottom where it says more than 4 families and includes up to 1 acre of land. perhaps removing that 1 acre and saying includes associated land, maybe something like that. The way land is valued around the state is very different, and a majority of the properties obviously are going to be under an acre. We know that as they sit in municipalities, but that land typically isn't broken out to apply that exemption to it. So it might be just a suggestion for a change in language there. Other than that, stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions? Yeah, Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, would you go over the, those dates again? Where it's pretty tight for you in your suggestion. Would you run that by me again, please? Thank you.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Senator French. So right now, currently as this bill stands, the application has to be filed by the 4th Monday in May. June 1st, the assessor must submit their abstract to the State Board of Equalization. So that could be a matter of a few days or maybe a week at some point. So really short turnaround there. Of course, we don't want anyone to miss out on this. We want to make sure that every application gets where it should, and that was our suggestion of having 1 spot for applications. So it is a pretty tight turnaround. Of course, this is effective January 1st, 2025. So if this proposal were to pass, I think we have time to get the word out on the applications and get that website set up so that people could apply for that future year. But it is a pretty short turnaround as it sits right now.
Thank you. Let me follow up on that. Do you have a date in mind that would work better for you, or is this workable? Because we don't want to certainly put you in a bind. Do you remember? I can't recall why that is in there that way. Did we discuss this I mean, that was so long ago in June. Do you
Yeah,
remember what the discussion was on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the 4th Monday in May is a typical cutoff, and the veterans exemption's always been the 4th Monday in May. And so I think it's just using that language that's already in statute. I don't really have a better suggestion, and maybe the assessors would have a better suggestion for a date for that turnaround. And maybe we need a date of when the applications open to when they close also. That might be a proposed amendment there.
And one more question, if we made this effective like the 1st of this year, is that going to be an issue to be able to, because I'm sure that'll be a possible amendment either here or on the floor. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that to make it.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, great question. On the improvement piece, on the single-family residential structure, probably not that big of an issue. The land would be a lot harder to implement for this year.
And could you expand on that as to why, so we can be better informed?
Sure. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Everything in the CAMA system is driven by an abstract code. The abstract code is a code that the State Board of Equalization uses to identify valuation throughout the state. So we have X amount of dollars of valuation of single-family residences, X amount of dollars of condos. Those are all abstract codes. So every building has an abstract code, whereas land, it can have multiple abstract codes. And without going through that data and combing through that data, those abstract codes, it won't know where to apply that. So currently the CAMA system would not be able to perform that calculation.
That's good information. Thank you. Any more questions? Can we turn them loose? Seeing none, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Come on up. Welcome to Senate Revenue.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Melissa Schinkel. I am the Teton County Assessor and current president of the Assessors Association. The assessors met last week in Casper, Wyoming, and unanimously support property tax relief and reform in various measures. With this particular bill, we do support a long-term solution such as a homestead exemption or for primary residence. A couple of things we do want to point out on this one is, although the department has offered to create a centralized filing, we would respectfully request that the language be added, possibly mirroring the veterans exemption, where taxpayers can call or mail or electronically communicate with the assessor's office to confirm their residency status with us. And as an example, I believe in Senate File 121, there is a paragraph that uses that language. In addition to that, I think this could be addressed in the affidavit portion, but maybe just one point of clarification would be that the person must reside for not less than 8 months in the previous year and each year thereafter, or maybe some language to just nail that down a little bit. And then, of course, we do agree with Administrator Gill that associated lands may be a little easier to administer. Regarding your specific question, Chairman Beitman, regarding being able to do this in 2024, we would love it if we could, but in order to provide a successful application process for the taxpayers, it would be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to process the amount of applications between now and that June 1st deadline, not to mention the process of just standing it up. So that would be the biggest detriment for this bill,
Okay.
for us to implement sooner. And I think that's all I have, and I stand for questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Any
you.
questions, Ms. Shingle? Thank you very, very much. Welcome to Senate Revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Emily Parvasini, Sublette County Treasurer and President of the County Treasurers Association. I think the only thing that we would like to possibly add to this is some kind of language that says that the exemption will be shown on the tax bill so that people know the amount that they received off of their taxes without having to call us 100 times. So that would be the only other thing. I think the only other thing I might ask you to think about is considering that $200,000 threshold. We could roll it back a tiny bit, 175 or 150, just to protect those counties like Niobrara that are just now at the point where they can provide insurance for their employees. It might be too big of a chunk from their budget to have that big dollar amount, but that would be the only things that the Treasurers Association would ask.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for the Treasurers Association? Yes, Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being here, ma'am. So you said roll it back because some of those, like Niobrara or whatever. What documentation do you have or the association to put a number on there versus 200,000 down to 175 or whatever, or lower? Do you have any documentation from them saying if it's 200,000, we won't? Because ABC won't be able to provide this to our staff, our employees? Or is it just a number they suggested? Anyway, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator French, it's not a definite number. You know, when you look at those counties that have very tight budgets, any amount of money that they aren't receiving because of these kinds of exemptions definitely affect their bottom line. Sublette County, of course, will be able to absorb a lot of these kinds of things, but some of those smaller counties, so it's not a definite number. It's just a throw it out there, see if it sticks to the wall kind of number.
The age-old backfill question and debate. All right. Any more questions before we let the treasurers go? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anybody else wish to testify on Senate File 54, homeowner tax exemption? Welcome to Senate Revenue.
Mr. Chairman, Boyd Brown, Wyoming School Boards Association. Just wanted to bring your attention to the fiscal note. Again, we don't take a position on the policy. Leave that up to you guys. Just reminding you that this will reduce the amount of money that goes into the school foundation program. It looks like the 12 mills for the school foundation program in 06 or 26 would be 14.9 million, and 2027, 15.3. If you look at the bottom paragraph, it looks like out of the 43 mills supporting the school foundation program, that it would reduce it by 53.3 million for fiscal year 26 and 54.7 million for tax year 2026. And just a reminder that local mills that are out there too, the 6 and the 25 that are mandatory by the state, go to the school districts, and that you may be reducing the amount of recapture money that you're getting and increasing the entitlement payments that you may have to pay out to school districts there. So not for or against, just wanting to make sure everybody's on the same page. And just reminding you that the way our local property taxes are spent, at least in 23, 69% of that went to public school districts. Local county governments got 17% of that money. 8% goes to special districts. Community college get about 4%, and then towns and cities get 2% of the property taxes. So that's where that money goes.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Yep.
Any questions from Mr. Brown? Any questions? Appreciate you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to testify? Not seeing a mad rush to the front. Do we have anybody on Zoom? Nobody on Zoom. People are zoomed out. Okay. I guess we'll close public comment. Committee, what's your pleasure?
Move the bill. Second.
Moved and seconded. Yeah, any amendments? You want to go page by page, or do you want to do conceptually? It's up to you guys. Senator Ide.
Thank you, Chairman Beitman. Going line by line with my amendments might be a little rough here. It's
Okay.
kind of a, like you said, maybe a general discussion on this, just to flesh it out.
Okay.
I can, instead of getting into sort of the reasons why, I'll tell you the amendments that I'd like to make just in a broad sense. Does that work?
Sure, and then we can take them one at a time if that's.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do that.
So, without getting into the reasons why, I think we should eliminate the $200,000 exemption. I think we should make the effective date.
Well, when you say eliminate, do you mean change it? Because this is the whole bill.
Yeah, I know. I don't think there should be a threshold
So expand it
exemption.
to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Okay, Gotcha.
Yep. Let's see. Probably the biggest piece of this would be not pulling just personal residence. I think it should be the all other property class. Yeah, I think we're playing with fire here by constitutional reasoning if we're cherry picking something out of an all other property class. You veterans probably know a little bit more about that than I do. So my preference would be to make it the all other property class, which would be your personal residence, commercial, and ag is basically what's in all other, and I guess personal property is in there as well.
I don't think we can,
You don't think we can do that?
just because of the bill title.
Your mic. Senator McEwen?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think we're kind of limited because of the bill title.
Okay, continue on, Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. President, or Chairman Beitman.
Don't do that to me.
I think I probably better stop right there because I think you're right. We'd be changing the whole bill and the bill title. So I think these amendments may be something that couldn't really happen. We'd be changing the character of the whole bill. So.
So Senator
anybody
Hyde,
wanna
which,
take-
which one would you like to tackle first, and would you make the motion?
Let's see, I'll make the motion that we eliminate the $200,000 and just make it whatever property it is. I mean, the full value.
So,
There's no limit.
so not have anybody pay any property tax, like exempt all property tax?
Well, the 25% would still be in play. It just wouldn't be limited to
Gotcha.
the 200,000.
Yeah, you would just get rid of from not to the end of that.
That would be right.
Okay.
That'd be right. Yeah.
So Clayton, looks like on page 8, or on page 2, line 8, after comma, strike not to exceed a total exemption of $200,000 of the fair market value of the property. I think that's what he's after. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's
Senator
correct. Yeah, thank you.
Hyde? Okay, discussion. Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I almost said president because everybody else views you that way. Senator, do you have any idea? 'Cause we all know people are going to squawk on this fiscal note. We're going to hear it on that one from everybody. Do you have any idea what additional cost it might be? You'd have to check with LSO or whoever.
Senator Hyde?
Chairman Biteman, I do not know, and I know that that will change significantly.
We will need to get a hold of budget fiscal for that. Okay. Any further discussion on the amendment to get rid of the cap at 200,000 of fair market value? Discussion? Ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
3 ayes, 2 noes. That has been adopted. And Clayton, you might want to make this standing committee amendment divisible because it's going to be divided. So I'm just telling you, there's going to be some fur flying out there. Okay, next amendment. Who's up? Bob, or Senator Hyde, you want to do another one? Senator Hyde?
Thank you, Chairman Biteman. I'd like to make the second amendment to make this effective January 1st, 2024, instead of January 1st, 2025.
Okay. Discussion? I was thinking about doing that one as well, but after hearing testimony that it's probably not feasible, you know, that kind of threw water on my parade, but I see where you're coming from. I'll probably have to vote no on it, but that's just my opinion. Anybody else have an opinion on this? Senator,
Mr. Chairman,
Senator French?
I'm of this. Mr. Chairman, I'm of the same opinion because we're making the time frame pretty short. But that's just my opinion.
Any further discussion? Senator Hyde?
Yeah, Chairman Biteman, I did listen to that discussion as well and maybe misunderstood a little bit. I was thinking if they couldn't get that in, and so we can't do the 2024 in time effectively, but can we roll back
Oh, gotcha.
you see what I'm saying? Maybe in 2025, you could pick that up as, you know, an extra benefit for that application from 2024. Anyway, if you guys think that that's too complicated with the testimony.
I see what you're saying, and that
Yeah.
brings up a great question. Can we have the assessors or the treasurers or anybody that knows the answer to this question come up and clarify that for us? If we made it effective, I think what Senator Hyde's getting at is to make it effective for that tax year so that we can always come back to it once the system's up and taxpayers that qualify can go ahead and get it, even if it's next year when the system's up and running. Does that make sense?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I think I understand the question. So in other words, make it effective for 2024, and they would get the tax rebate or the exemption later. The problem with that would be your values are already certified by June 1st. And all your taxing entities have budgeted against those monies or those values. So that going back a year I don't think it would work with the tax calendar.
Any questions on that? Yes, Senator Wright.
It sounds like it's going to be a heavy lift, and I'll withdraw that motion if it sounds like the consensus is that's maybe not going to be even possible to do. So,
The motion's been withdrawn.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'm
Yes.
sorry. We're estimating about 177,000 applications that would qualify for this. So that's a pretty short time period from right now or when the governor would sign this to the fourth Monday in May. So that would be a pretty hard. And I'm afraid a lot of people would not know about it and they would miss out on this exemption.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Sorry for dragging you back up.
No, you're fine. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. Committee, anybody want to take a stab at the, where was that? Oh, on page 4, lines 17 and 18, up to 1 acre. You want to take a stab at that? I guess I'll do it. I'll propose an amendment to page 4, line 17, strike up to 1 acre of, and insert associated there. So it'll read, and includes associated land where the dwelling is located. In reference to the testimony we heard. Seconded. Any discussion on that? Question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That has carried. What about the assessors requested that we do a mirror to the veterans exemption? Anybody want to take that up? Not seeing any. What about the treasurer's request to have this appear on the tax bill so people don't call them nonstop? Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move that. That's a very good idea, because the assessors are always bombarded by questions and, why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you let me know? That'll give them a heads up on that, so I would propose that as an amendment.
Second.
So Clayton, the conceptual amendment based on the testimony from the Treasurers Association was to have this show up on the tax bill. Do you have what you need to make that happen for the standing committee amendment, or do we need to figure out where to stick it in this bill?
Mr. Chairman, do you have a preference on where it would be specifically, just so I can convey that information?
Let's see here. We'll defer to the staff attorneys on that, and then we have to do it on the floor, we'll do it on the floor. But we'll see if they can make it happen, because I, at this moment, couldn't tell you. Committee, you want to vote on that or discuss it? Any discussion? Senator French?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I'm just trying to find a spot too, so we can just do it now, but I'm struggling. Would it be appropriate on page 2, somewhere between just after line 10, maybe? Or
Senator Pappas made a good point. It's probably going to be out in a different area in the statutes outside of the section we're in right now. So might need to bring in another statute. I don't have the green books in front of me to pull that off. LSO can certainly figure out this. We pay them the big bucks for, so, all right. Minnie, ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That is carried. So that's our third amendment. Anything else on this good little bill? I believe that takes care of everything we've heard today. Yes, sir, Senator Ide.
Thank you, Chairman Biteman. I don't know, this probably isn't necessary for an amendment, but I wanted to discuss it. You know, this thing's just makes a mess out of things a little bit. You know, have to make application. You know, you got to be a resident for at least 8 months or you don't qualify. It seems like it just brings up a lot of red tape to deal with complicating it for taxpayers, but it is a good relief bill. I'm in favor of that, but we're getting to the point where nobody can even know whether they qualify or if they don't, or why did you come up with 25.6 and, you know, those kind of questions. But just thought I'd throw that out there for whatever it's worth. Yeah.
Thank you, Senator. Any other discussion before we call the question here? I would just say, you know, we do a great job of making perfect the enemy of the good in this body, and we don't always get what we want, but sometimes we gotta take little bites where we can and take a win when we can get it. So I'll support this bill and see how it goes through the process. We put a lot of work into it on the interim, and we'll see where we can go, see what comes of it. All right, Clayton, will you please call the roll?
Senator French,
What? Oh. I thought you were gonna say, support the bill as amended or whatever. You say aye. I apologize.
Senator Ide,
Aye.
Senator McCune,
Aye.
Senator Pappas,
No.
Chairman Biteman.
Aye.
That is 4 ayes and 1 no.
Thank you, Clayton. Thank you, committee. Thank you, everybody that came here today. We appreciate you so much. And this committee meeting has been adjourned. That's all we got. Nothing else on the table, right?